Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Our last day here at the summit, and really appreciate you being here this morning. I'm excited about this track because it's really about bringing and marrying outdoor to indoor living and how to bridge that with technology. I think through this entire summit, I've been hearing a lot about lighting and that 90% of people's time is spent indoors, which is kind of discouraging that 10% is really the only time people are enjoying the outdoors. So I think by creating these atmospheres in which you're bringing the outside in, Frank Lloyd Wright was one of the greatest architects to complete that kind of concept. And I think a lot of architects are still adopting those practices of really making sure they utilize the land and bring as much joy and light and recreation to these spaces. And I'm really excited to have this particular panel. We have Brad Leavitt with AFT, and I'll have him introduce himself in a bit, but he's going to be showing a property that has really utilized play and fun and getting your family outdoors and utilizing your space to really make a family home a home. We also have Bob Deeks. He's with RDC, and he's going to be presenting a home in Whistler that has the mountainscape and the lake view and just the real positivity of nature. And then how do you maintain these incredible spaces, and how do you bring in technology? And we have Natallie with Rachio. She's going to talk about irrigation and also some green spaces that you can bring indoors and utilize real nature in those spaces. And we have Chris Sharp with Bravas. He's our tech expert here on integration, and he's going to share how you unify these beautiful natural elements and bring in technology. And it seems like an oxymoron, right? Nature, technology, kind of like they fight each other, but this is how we bridge it and make it work for your client's pleasure. So I'm going to start and have everyone introduce themselves. Do you want to start with that?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Brad Leavitt, and as was mentioned from Tara, we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, and team of 30. We don't self-perform, true general contractor, and focus on high-end luxury. So a lot of the high-end luxury there in the Scottsdale area. We do some commercial as well, and of course some renovations depending on the scale of it. But yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Bob Deeks at RDC Fine Homes. We are located in Whistler, just north of Vancouver. We do projects from just north of Whistler all the way through into the Lower Mainland, City of Vancouver. Our primary focus has always been high-end luxury. We do renovations as well. We actually have a small jobs team that services our previous projects, as well as dips into smaller projects when the market's down a little bit. They can take over and do kitchens and bathrooms. We also do a little bit of commercial work, and we are just in the process of opening a new office halfway to Vancouver and Squamish.
I'm Natallie Stone with Rachio, a Denver-based company. We actually invented the first ever smart irrigation controller about 10 years ago or so. Actually started on the more DIY consumer side of things and have expanded since into pro contractors and real estate and a little bit into the luxury space as well. So I work mostly with our utility partners as well as our real estate and home builder partners as well.
Chris Sharp with Bravas. We are a over 300-person integration firm that really specializes in harmonizing high-end residential environments through technology. We work all the way from San Francisco to Oregon to Boca Raton, Cape Cod, all over the country, focusing on luxury and super luxury to partner with people just like this to make these environments just absolutely incredible.
Thank you. Well, Bob, I'm going to start with Bob. He's going to show a beautiful space in Whistler that he has completed and talk about his technology ups and downs on that one and the benefits of having an integrator versus not having one. So I'll let you start.
All right. So this is a project that we built from 2015 to 2019. This was a greenfield site. Actually, the old highway came down through this property. And we engaged with the clients before they found a property. We worked with them to find a unique property for them in Whistler. And as you'll see from some of the other photographs, this is a very, very unique property in Whistler. Whistler has 3 lakes. This is on the largest lake. The house faces due south and has an unobstructed view of the 2 ski areas, Whistler Blackcomb. For any of you that know skiing, Whistler Blackcomb is the largest ski area in North America. And what was really important for them was that connection between, the interior spaces and the outdoor spaces. They had the ability to put a dock, so they had that water access from the house. And one of the challenges we had was the highway was quite elevated above the water level. And so it was an integration to try and find that blend of topography that allowed them to come gently down to the house. I mean, I've got tons of photographs. We just don't have time to show them all. But how did we create that interface that, got them from the highway down to the house, and then didn't have too much of a grade change to get them down to the water? Outdoor living was really, really important. As you'll see from the photographs we have here, virtually every space in the house is connected to either decks or the outdoor living spaces. What is so fascinating about this house, one is the client. I was speaking earlier that, he grew up poor in England. He was a tenured professor at Cambridge with a PhD in electrical engineering by the age of 22. He was also on England's under-21 rugby team at the same time. He told me, he did 1 year as a tenured professor and decided that there were better things in life to be doing than teaching at Cambridge. And so I'd never really worked with somebody who was as smart as this guy is. He developed the first quantum computing chip in the world. And so, incredible person to work with. And this whole house was designed around a sound room. So he wanted a perfect sound box. And so the dimensions of his sound room and theater room in the bottom floor were determined, and then the whole house was created around it. One of the things they really wanted was very high ceilings. This shot is off the 3rd floor. But as you can see, there's floor-to-ceiling glass on every south-facing scape. This is off the master bedroom. Again, you can see the mountains in the background. You can see the lake view underneath. And so we have these big sliding glass doors. We ended up having to get all the windows from Germany because the sliding glass doors on the bottom floor are 15 feet high. So great shot. You can see the 2 ski areas in the background there. That's Green Lake in front. You can see the dock access. And one of the things that they really love to do is entertain. And so big kitchen. They're both trained chefs as well, if you can believe that. And so the kitchen was a huge part of their living experience. You can see this is the main kitchen, living room, dining room. The house is about 9,000 square feet. And then in the background there, you can see those 15-foot tall doors that open out. Every level has a deck, and it's a combination on the lower floors and the mid floor of covered spaces. And then, of course, in that outdoor space, we've got heaters. This house, for the time, had almost every electrical connected whistle and bell that you could have. This was before I had come to Tech Home and didn't really understand who an integrator was. And I think one of the biggest pain points we had on this is we didn't have an integrator. The electrician did the Lutron system, and it was a bit of a hodgepodge. We sort of tripped into home automation and integration as we went through the process. One of the biggest conflicts we had was when they, at the last minute, went and hired a lighting designer. And the lighting designer, the fee for the lighting designer took up half of my downlight budget. And then the electrical budget, I think we eclipsed it by 10 times. And then, so I had the homeowner who, at an intelligence level that is way beyond, what we were used to, was directly engaging with the interior designer and the electrician to try and cobble this all together. So in the end, we have a fully automated blind system. We have a full Lutron lighting system throughout the entire house. There's integrated audio everywhere. And one of the things that was a bit of a shock to the team was they put cameras throughout the entire house with audio. And he actually warned me as we were coming through the final finishing phases of the house and everything was getting heated up. He said, just so you know, I can see everything that's going on and I can hear everything. And a big project like this, particularly one that had exploded in scope, we had a plumbing trade who was really frustrated and was being very, very difficult. And Paul called me one day and he said, I feel your pain. Like, oh, he said, yeah, I was overhearing the plumbers as they're doing the fit and finish in the house. But as you can see, this combination of making sure that you had the indoors and outdoors, that kitchen was designed, they like to entertain 40 people at a time. And so it was really, really important for them that they could have these big parties and that people could seamlessly go from inside to outside. I wonder where that dock, huge dock area for outdoor living to get out on the water. He actually has a float plane, and so the dock was designed so that he could bring the float plane in and park it at the dock. Super exciting project and really, really happy clients.
It's beautiful, beautiful project.
How did he do with the scope change?
Not well. We built for a lot of wealthy people, and I had a friend of mine at one point who was working for one of the biggest developers in the Lower Mainland, and he said, I really had figured out how to work for millionaires, but learning how to work for a billionaire was a steep learning curve. Mm-hmm. And this was a bit of a challenge because they had very, very high-end taste. He did tell me early on, and I think he forgot this. He said, look, if the project is going to increase in budget, just give me a heads up in advance. Sure. So if I'm going to have to spend an extra $1 million, you got to give me some time to adjust to that. And we did that, mm-hmm. But it still was super challenging.
I bet.
If I can just interject a question for you, Bob, you mentioned not having an integrator, having all these things pop up on you, and just really it just sounds like it wasn't discussed early. Is there any way you can approximate how much time that cost you, and maybe just an approximation of labor dollars and combination with time that it cost on the total project?
I think one of the biggest things was in not understanding where we were going with particularly with lighting and with the blinds, was how much time it was going to. The electricians came to me as we were getting into the fit and finish phase and told me they needed 6 weeks to do their electrical finishing, and I'd never seen that before. Wow! And we had a client who was, on our back about moving into the house because the project was already delayed. And if we'd had an integrator at the earliest stages, we would have everybody would have understood what the options were, right. And that lighting design would have been done. I mean, we did a full integrated design, but because we were missing the integrator at the early stage, we didn't understand really, where they were going to take this and what they could have.
That's right.
And that was the biggest failure on my part was, not understanding where this potentially could go. And we now learned how important that integrator is in the earliest stages of a project, particularly one of this scope, so that the clients understand what they could have and they make those decisions early on. Because when you get somebody adding these types of scopes of work partway through your project, the project team completely loses their ability to control cost and schedule. And then people get really upset. And so while we turned over a great project, and in the end the clients were super happy, financially it was really challenging, and it was really stressful.
How about the exterior lighting? Was it also the electrician, the landscape architect, or the designer, light designer?
So we ended up with a very, very extensive landscape plan, mm-hmm. With extensive landscape lighting. And in the end, the whole thing got thrown out. Oh. So they pared back the landscaping to I mean, it looks lovely, but it's a fraction of what the original landscape architect, because we had a landscape architect as part of it. And now that the house is 5 or 6 years old and the landscape has grown in, it looks great. But in the end, they abandoned all the outside lighting. I think, this is not an ostentatious house from the highway. When you drive by it at night, it's subdued. You're not really going to notice it. And I think that's kind of where they wanted their privacy. They didn't want a house that was a look at me, look at me, look at me. And so from a lighting perspective, as you look at all the covered deck spaces, there's enough light there, but they didn't blow their brains out on it.
And how about the cameras? Was that a third party that came in and did all the?
So it was all done through the electrical contractor.
Okay.
And, in the end, it worked out. But it was, a lot of fits and starts. And yeah, the cameras, I'm not entirely too sure why he wanted cameras throughout the house. You don't notice them.
Okay.
We had a problem where we had a guy in the house. I don't know how much we want to talk about this, but we were doing just deficiency work, and he had a ladder set up, and he had a bucket on the ladder, and he tripped and knocked the ladder over and damaged the drywall, and then he didn't say anything about it. So I got an email next day with a video.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And the people that you meet in this industry, so Paul would review all the video.
Interesting.
On top of his, I don't think he ever slept.
Okay. Yeah.
So he would fast forward the video, and he would look at the entire day.
Yeah.
And he would listen to it.
Right.
So beware.
Yeah.
The best clients. Right?
Yes.
Did he have a lot of really high value items in the house?
Oh my God.
I'm sure.
He's a musician, and so he has a separate room with guitars and piano, and they have a grand piano that we built a special space in the living room for a grand piano because his wife was a grand piano pianist. The sound room, I think he had $500,000 in audio equipment in the sound room. Very, very high end pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the cameras, because I didn't realize it, but there's so much that, were they temperature controlled? Because I didn't even realize it because of that cold climate. A lot of times they'll defrost so you can still see. And then if there's condensation, it will clear up so that there's a clear view. Because sometimes that's, again, the integrator knows about all of these camera opportunities, especially in a climate that is forever changing.
I'll learn something new every day.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't know you could ever.
It makes a difference.
Nobody's ever complained.
Okay.
And this is, these are cameras are inside the house.
Okay.
I don't think that we actually did security outside. I think all the cameras and everything are interior facing.
Yeah.
I don't think we did security on the outside. They weren't super. The one thing that he was, because of his business in the IT business, he was super concerned with getting hacked. And so the security on the internet in the house was extreme. And he would tell me every time I met him, the Russians tried to hack into the house 4 times yesterday. And so one of the problems we had was the control system for the heating and cooling system was archaic technology. And they were trying to hack into the house through the heating and cooling system control panel. So we replaced that.
Wow. Intense. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now we're going to shift gears. When I spoke with Brad, I said, do you have a project to share? And he sent the photos, and I'm like, whoa, I have never seen it. I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Tara. I work for a builder in New England, Kenneth, Vona and Son. And he's 40 years, and we've seen components of what Brad's home he's about to show, but never all of it in one space. And talk about bringing the outside in and really making your home a playground. So I'll have Brad talk more about it.
Well, fortunately, we are in a different client, so Arizona's a little unique to having, than the Northeast. The good thing about Phoenix is, as you alluded to, there's, indoor outdoor living is a huge role for our clients. That's a big feature of what we offer in Arizona. So we don't have a lot of the natural disasters that they have in other parts of the country. It's just hot, right, in the summer, so the summers are pretty warm. I grew up in San Diego, but, Scottsdale is, right now for us, it's a great climate until about, June. But with that said, our clients, we've seen it change a lot through the pandemic, and it's interesting, I think Bob and I can share some similar experience on just maybe not having all the tools or resources, at certain projects at a certain point in your career, as Chris mentioned from the integrator side, and just understanding the value from day one, having interior design, architecture, lighting design, right? Integrators involved, landscape architecture. And I bring it up because I remember probably 4 or 5 years ago, there was a builder, actually out of Colorado, that called me, and at this point, I'd learned the pain points, probably like Bob, about having the right team in place right before you start a project. And he's like, Brad, when do you want to have all your selections done for a project? Is it like at frame stage? And I'm like, no, like, what are you doing? It's like you should even break ground till you have all the selections done. And the reason I bring it up, because even when you have all the selections done, like this project I'm going to show you, things change. They just do. This is the drawings from the original landscape plan that did evolve over time, as you'll see, and even this page is cutting off about half of the project, so we're missing about half of it right here. This is mostly just showing the house, which is just under 23,000 square feet, the house itself. And then there's a trampoline barn, additional structure that's 5,000 square feet I'll show you. And we have a 2-bedroom guest casita with RV garage, but there's also a tennis court, a baseball field, lazy river, and all these different, volleyball area that I'm going to show you here in a minute. So there's some really neat elements to this build. Going back, and again, not to spend a ton of time on this element, because I know Chris will speak about this, but, having, again, this house is all Ketra. Even the closets were Ketra lighting. So we had a full lighting architect design the entire lighting system in this home with Crestron and Lutron, who we partnered with. And so this is just under 4 acres. It's about a 4-acre job site. There was 2.5 years of pre-construction, so we spent 2.5 years in design for this build, and then the build was almost 3 years. So this was just over 5 years of construction, from start to finish. And so I took this picture from my drone early on, and in the bottom right, you see all those little holes. That was for that is for the tennis court that's going in. On the top right, that's the baseball field. It's a wiffle ball field designed after Wrigley Field in Chicago. And then in the top middle, there's, think of it like a mini basement. That's for the trampoline area. It's an indoor trampoline barn that's fully air conditioned and automated. And then you have to the left of that, the outdoor volleyball court. And then we hadn't started digging the RV garage to the left of that. But you can see the basement going into the main house in the bottom left. And then, of course, some of the spoils there in the middle of the project. Throughout construction, as we started working, working through design, the client had asked that we build a tennis court first. They knew this was going to be a 2.5-year build, and they're very active tennis players. So the tennis court was finished from day one. Lighting was set up. We had all the utilities into the project. That way the clients could come by every day. So every morning throughout construction, I didn't have the cameras like Bob had where the clients are, listening to every transaction, but they were there every morning playing tennis. So they did get to see construction. They get to, a lot of our trade partners got to meet them. And so the wife, she would always have typically at least 3 of her friends, maybe 7 of them. And they would have, competitions every day and be playing tennis all throughout construction. So again, the lighting, we did a photometric analysis on the volleyball area or on the tennis court area. The reason being is to not have any blind spots when they're playing at night. And so they would use this, and then there's just to the right of the tennis court, they call that the spectator pavilion, which I may have some shots in here. And that's like an outdoor kitchen, mist system, speakers, and again, the catcher lighting there. So again, this played a big role just because as you think about now, as we get to completion of the project, this kind of gives you a good view, bird's eye view of how that finished. And so again, wiffle ball on the bottom left. And so the infield was artificial turf. That way you could keep, you don't have to repaint the lines all the time. And, it's about continuing living in the property. The outfield was real grass. So we built a ramp so they could bring a lawnmower down there that they could drive around and, cut the grass. There will be some other drone images I'll post, but we did do a masonry wall, a little mini masonry wall around the baseball field, just as you'd see in Wrigley, but the ivy hasn't grown over yet, so little time there. The house is like a U-shape, that 20,000 square foot house, which I'll have some images. And some better views to see what that lazy river looks like. And the diving area, which is kind of the darker blue area, that's like 14 feet deep. So the kids, there's a big water feature grotto that they can jump off and dive into. And the right side of the pool is actually elevated. It's 3 feet deep and it's elevated. And that's so the kids can play volleyball and basketball, in that 3 foot deep water all the way across. And there's just under a mile, there's about 3/4 of a mile of sidewalk all throughout the property. So for kids riding bikes and scooters, and there's park benches and everything. And as you walk this in person, like it's a very lush design. Very does. And so this kind of gives you a little view as you're flying in to kind of see the amenities. What's amazing about these clients is, and there's their siblings actually here on the backside. These 2 lots are their brother and sister that own these. And so originally we designed, they wanted an underground like tunnel to drive golf carts to the cousin's house. They decided to opt out of that. And we actually originally had designed to do a flow rider, a surf machine, right, you'd see in this property. But that was, it wasn't VE'd out. It was actually as crazy as you'll see the trampoline barn. The wife was worried about liability with the surf park. So that was taken out for liability concerns. And this is going to give you a view here from the other side as you come on in. And so, but we do have a golf cart gate on the bottom right that you may not have seen as this is coming through. But this is so that the siblings, and their cousins and kids can come in. But what's really neat about these clients, they let the whole neighborhood come by and use this property. So they do have cameras and they have security all throughout, but the neighborhood kids, as they want to come through, they allow them to use the baseball field. So there's a scoreboard and the wiffle ball field.
That's great.
Again, there's sound all throughout the property. So again, this is why the integrator, I can't imagine doing this project without an integrator, especially with all the catcher lighting. There was just so many components to this build. And so this is a view looking long ways in the trampoline barn where you have the skate park. So they have a little half pipe here. And then there's 3 trampolines here, and we put in basketball hoops so they could play dunk basketball. Both those sliders are about 35 feet that, stack open for the client. It is air-conditioned space, all wood interior. So in the summer, when it's pretty warm, they have the ability to, keep that nice and air-conditioned for them. And then, of course, right now, I mean, if you were to go by the house today, those windows and doors would be open. The home gym, again, working with our integrator here, we actually worked with Sonance by Sound. A lot of you may know them. We worked with the James speaker with them. We have some decorative speakers that look like the beams in here, the structural steel. There's a lot of structural steel in this build. That's a Renlita, like airplane style hanger door that opens up. So as the clients are working out, they can go outside to the tennis court right there. In the right side of that image, there's a Formula One machine there, to simulate Formula One simulator. And then, of course, this entire room was designed to be soundproof because the client, again, going back to that discussion early on with the client, they don't like working out with AirPods, right? They don't want to have anything in their ears. They like to blast the music as loud as they can. This is part of the master suite wing. And so you can see in the left side, these walls are, roughly 14-inch thick, solid concrete, all the way around. And so we soundproof this entire space so that they could be as loud as they want, when they're working out in the morning. Again, this is outside of the trampoline barn. This is a target from the right field and the wiffle ball field to hit the water tower. This is functioning. So one thing that's unique about this project, as big as it is, being 28,000 square feet livable on 4 acres, all the landscape. We worked with a company out of Texas to bring in the water tower. So this vertical water tower is functional, it's decorative. We came up with the design with the client. It's 3,000 gallons. And then underground, we have a 5,000 gallon tank. So city water comes in here, fills up to 8,000 gallons. We have a recirc pump with the backup Kohler generator in case, power goes out. And then that keeps, water to the entire property, but also has a reservoir in case of a natural disaster. We also have you can see some of the solar powers there on the trampoline barn. We have some on the house as well. And this was a 65 kilowatt solar system, and we did 13 Tesla Powerwalls. Now I met with some other vendors here that, we might have had a better option there to take about some less space, from the backup batteries. But again, just a lot of great features from sustainability from the client. as far as water and power. This is a view from, Tara asked me a question. She said, okay, you have misters in the tennis area, you have them all around the house. What about in the dugout? I'm like, actually, that's a good detail we missed. We didn't put that in. And to be fair, in Arizona, the way these, you may remember from the dirt picture I showed from the beginning, you have to self-retain water. So in Arizona, we don't have storm drains. Like we don't have a stormwater system. So you have a civil engineer that does calculations based on, the size of acreage and the property size that you have on the lot size. And based on the rainfall we have, you have to self-retain that in basins. They call them retention basins. You may put in dry wells. And so instead of just having a pit where all the water, runs off, we actually designed that to be the volleyball area and the baseball field. So they're using a retention basin. And again, being in Arizona, we do have heavy rains in the summer when it's monsoon season, but it's so dry that it does dry fairly quickly. So again, there's not really any damage to, the facility, if you will, here. And so, again, the clients can use this, and you can see that scoreboard there in left field. Now, this is a view gives you a little view of we have a 50-foot multi-slider that fully opens there to the great room. And then, of course, patio heaters out back. Again, where automation played a big role is all the exterior lighting are gas lanterns. So they're run off these copper lanterns that are all gas. And so integrating the plumbing components into the, for the client was ideal so they control everything. Again, it's hard to tell, but there's an opening to the grotto on the bottom left, and that entire wall is a firewall. So you have about 4 feet of firewall that when that's engaged, you have that 4 feet of flame. And there's still a staircase where kids do have to be careful coming up, right? Because you can come up and there's a water feature where they jump off that grotto into that 14-foot deep area. And this gives you a view that underneath that elevated 3-foot pool, you can see that little cantilever that it's an opening. So the lazy river goes underneath that little staircase going up to the play pool with, the volleyball net that's up there. So there's a lazy river that goes all the way around that 3-foot elevated pool. That's pretty fun area. And then that hot tub in the back by that covered patio and the master suite, it's a 25-person hot tub, negative edge on all 4 sides. This kind of gives you a better view of what that looks like, kind of that house appeal. So the lazy river there in the middle, the elevated on the right, and then kind of play pool on the left for the kids and friends. And again, that, hot tub area.
Does the lazy river, does it move?
It does move. Yeah, and so going back to design, when I wish I had a drone shot of like all the components as we're digging it, because there's 13 pool pumps, right, to engage the lazy river and the swimming pool. And so they're all underground vaults. Everything's underground, so you don't hear the pool pumps running throughout the day because they're underground, these vaults that are accessible. And so, so as it's running, and this is a still photo, but they were running, when we did photo day here. So so they're running, and they had kind of cool, black and white little tubes there.
That's great.
And again, this is that view from the hot tub areas. You're looking into the kitchen, into the home, this 50-foot slider. Those are gas lanterns that hang down from the ceiling. I think I'm going to have to go back when I have, there's an area of the great room to show all the structural steel components, because this great room is 80 feet long and 30 feet tall, all open, and you have this fireplace, that's 4-sided. If you look at the kitchen cabinetry, the clients were traveling in Spain, so a lot of the influence of the home is from their travels. They were in Spain, and they saw this cabinetry that's built out of Venetian plaster and white oak, and so we actually had the kitchen built, and they came back and decided to change the entire kitchen, which, again, going back to time delays, that definitely impacted the project. And it was just pretty complicated for us. Even that refrigerator wall in the back, has plaster and steel, and so there was just a lot of, elements there that creates some challenges for our team for sure. Going back to that indoor-outdoor living that Tara mentioned, so this is off the master bathroom, and they have a private Zen garden here. So again, all the water features, the gas lanterns, all the catcher lighting is all controlled through the home automation, which is just an incredible feature for the clients. And this is kind of another view of, again, this gives you a little view of the step-down area to the retention basin, the volleyball area down at the bottom, as well as just kind of get the layout of, all the different areas. To the left, you have, that tennis pavilion and then a drop-down area of just a pool area out back. And then this is the entry. At the entry, we have, it's a little dark in this image, but that entry pivot door is 9 feet wide by 12 feet tall. So nice big pivot door as you come into the home. And then again there's misters all throughout here on the back. We have a mist system all controlled through the automation. There's 3 fireplaces outside, 2 fire pits outside. So that indoor outdoor living again for the client is ideal. And then just another view here of the back, and you can just see those architectural elements. And this gives a little view off of the kids' kitchen. So one thing that's unique about this build is we have 4 kitchens. One of them is a teenage kitchen. So I showed you the main kitchen, which is the plaster that they don't want their kids and teenagers in. So the teenage kids and the college kids get to come to this guest casita kitchen, where they get to have friends over and make their messes. And then you could come out the multi-sliders from that kitchen right here to the lazy river and to those hanging benches. So again, just another view here of the baseball field. So yeah, our designer, when we started this, Dick called it Project Blow Your Mind. That was like the hashtag we used.
Yeah, definitely.
It was one of those few projects where, the client still did, like most clients, push back a little bit on some of the things, but they also had elements that they're willing to spend, like catcher lighting. And I think we've done quite a few projects with catcher, but it was definitely the first project where the entire home was catcher.
Yeah.
That's typically an area where they'll VE maybe closets or certain areas, and they did in this case.
What was their main appeal to Ketra?
It's a great question. So anyone that's been to, and I think Christy, you and I spoke about, Austin has a great showroom. Scottsdale has one. That client experience when they go into an integrator showroom and they can see, feel, touch, lighting, they can see how it's controlled, they can see the benefits. So for them, they were just obsessed about lighting. And so having seen the capabilities of that product and then meeting with one of the top lighting architects in town, that was key, because now you have someone that's doing a full lighting map right of the project, including the tennis court. And that was really what put them over. And so, yeah, when the sticker shock comes in, as they see all the components of the Lutron switching and the Crestron and, the catcher, but they were willing to do it because they knew how they'd be living, how they'd be using this property. And they travel a lot. So the convenience of our neighborhood kids and friends are coming over, and we could kick on the lights for them. We can engage the scoreboard. These are elements that now,
Well, and I'm guessing you mentioned them traveling, whether they're at a boutique hotel in Madrid or they're shopping at Neiman Marcus, they want that same experience. Mm-hmm. And they want to feel that same way. They don't want to come home to their home that they invested a lot of money in and just go, eh. No, they want to feel great.
Yeah.
Right?
They do, and it is. That's really the whole point. The reality is when you have an integrator or an interior designer, it's a luxury service, right? And so when you're working with the luxury clientele, you have to give them that luxury feel, as you're mentioning. And it's the convenience too. The reality is, there's nothing more frustrating when you have all these amazing elements, on your property and they don't work. So, being able to be in your room and be able to control, different aspects of the property make it very convenient. So
that's right.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. The integrator can introduce your clients to things that they didn't even know existed. Because the worst thing you could possibly have is client goes to all the effort to build a fantastic property, goes off somewhere and comes back and realizes that they could have done something differently. And bringing that integrator in at the earliest stage of the project, one, will help streamline, all these pieces to make sure that you're not adding things in hodgepodge as you go through, but it also makes sure that nothing really gets missed. And while there's huge sticker shock on some of these things, you are giving them the option to make a decision that's informed. And so if they turn something down, it never blows back on you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's the same experience they have at, our clients, quite frankly, they buy Ferraris. And their experience with their Ferrari consultant is, what color stitching do you want on the passenger seat? Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know I could get Scuderia red.
Yeah.
Well, you can.
Right.
But it's true. But that's the whole point, is that when they're in there and they can see it and they can, just like going to the integrated showroom, the sticker shock is less, it's less of a factor because, they see the value add.
Yeah. Well, and the shock decreases if they know about it beforehand.
Right. Yeah.
There's a very distinct
they know it's going to be 2x
here.
or 3x or whatever that's be, right? So
That's
they
right.
have those preliminary budgets. But
It truly is Project Blow Your Mind. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Thank you so much for sharing it. Bob as well, what a beautiful property. And Natallie, this is a tough act to follow here, right? I mean,
It is, but you all did give me a really great
I
segue,
bet.
actually, because so like I said, I'm with Rachio. We created the first ever smart irrigation controller, and we talk all the time about a couple of things that you have spoken about. One being, from the get-go, when you plan specifically for irrigation, that's what we specialize in. When you plan it from the get-go, it makes it so much easier. Having to retrofit your system, even something as simple as a controller afterwards, is really difficult. And then also speaking to maintaining your investment of your landscape and having the right tools in place again from the get-go, so that your client can see this really, beautiful, lush landscape, or something that's maybe a little bit more water-wise in Arizona, and being able to have the tools in place to maintain that and protect that investment from the get-go, with something that they might not have known about. Again, we're a really small component of this whole build, but if you don't have the right irrigation controller to maintain that landscape that you've invested all of this time and energy into design around, it can be really disappointing. So, as I said, we're the first smart controller on the market. We focus on efficiency and effectiveness. We bridge the gap between your home and your yard. So one of our taglines is connect outside, and everything that we do is about bringing that smart tech outdoors, and how can we make the outdoor square footage outside of your home an experiential space and a place that you want to be. So we elevate through experience, the experience through automation, integration, and conservation. So automation, we have a best-in-class app. Everything is powered through our smartphone, through your smartphone. We do have a handful of integrations that I'll get to on the next slide. But one of the greatest pieces of our technology is that adjustments can be made from anywhere at any time. So no matter where your homeowner is, or more specifically for this audience, no matter where their irrigation professional or contractor is, they can make those adjustments without the homeowner needing to be on site, which is really valuable. As I said, we have shared access for contractors, pros, whoever it may be. They don't need to have the homeowner on site. They can manage everything remotely. We also have a handful of features such as valve monitoring that will notify of potential system issues before you can even see the consequences of those issues. So integration, as I said, we have a handful of tools and softwares that we integrate with. We also have a public API, so we're not just limited to what you see here on this slide. A handful of options. These are just a couple, but you can trigger your irrigation if motion is detected. So listening to you speak about your client that is very focused on security, more internal than outside the home. But we have had some of our customers who use it. We had one who used it for deer on their property. Anytime deer wandered onto their property, they had it set up so that their irrigation would go off. We've also had folks do it for anyone cutting through their property, postal service workers, things like that. And then Tara and I had spoken a couple weeks ago about whether or not you could pause irrigation if an event is occurring. So say you're having folks over for, a barbecue get together in the outdoor spaces of your home. Typically we irrigate very, very early in the morning when it's most efficient, but you never know, maybe you're seeding new lawn or something and you're gonna have something that goes off in the evening. There are ways to set it up so that you're pausing your irrigation and no one is getting caught with a rogue sprinkler going off. So I like to say there's a lot of creative possibilities here, and that it's a luxury to be able to have that control and have it be automated to the point where your homeowner doesn't even need to be involved. Lastly, conservation. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart because I work with our utility partners. We are a WaterSense labeled controller, which means that you can save up to 50% on your outdoor water usage. A lot of times 60% of water usage for a home is outside of the home, especially for properties that are this large and have such lush landscaping. It's a really big, can be a really big cost, not just of resources, but also, financial cost to maintain that. And so we make sure that you're getting just the amount of water that you need and you're not using any more than that. One thing that I really love about our controller is that it's designed to care for any landscape. I say from a plant paradise to a desert oasis. So we work with customers in California, in Texas, in Wisconsin, Minnesota, all over the country. So whether you have, your agave plants and native plants, like we have, my husband loves native plants in Colorado, and we're, trying to save as much water as we can. Or you have a client that has a really, really lush landscape. I grew up in Wisconsin, and so, beautiful, lush yards and gardens and things like that. We work with drip irrigation, different types of nozzles and technology on the integration or on the irrigation side of things. So we can really support any and all of those landscapes. Lastly, soil conditions, sun exposure, all of those different variables that go into designing a landscape and ensuring that all of those plants are going to have wonderful lives and continue to be beautiful. We make sure to support all of that. The last thing I wanted to mention here, so we do consider, obviously we have our flagship product, our controller, and we have another item as well for hoses, but we do consider ourselves to be part of a broader ecosystem, and we heavily feature partner products on our website, and so a lot of our customers and irrigation contractors look to us for other products on the market that their customers and clients might be interested in. And so Tara and I kind of spoke about this product being a really great fit, especially in this space. And for this panel, marrying indoor and outdoor. So I was actually at our annual irrigation conference yesterday in Long Beach and saw a similar installation inside of the convention center. And so I'm sure some folks here have seen, these plant walls. And so there's a really great partner of ours. The company is called Biome, and they do smart living walls for more residential spaces. So I've even seen these in like a Whole Foods grocery store and spas, and there's all sorts of places now that are focused on that wellness and bringing nature indoors. And so what we love about this product is there's no plumbing required. You water 1 to 2 times a month. You can make your own plant selection. So I think there's like pet-friendly products. There's low water plants. And so it's a really great way to bring that outdoor green space, especially if you're in a part of the country, Arizona, Colorado, places where the outdoors might not be as traditionally green. It's a really great way to bring that experience indoors. So one of our featured partner products.
Beautiful, thank you. I think a lot more our clients, anyway, we have a lot asking for spa spaces, meditation spaces, and having that opportunity to bring the outside in these spaces and the health feeling of when you see, plant life. It's a mindset of cleaner air, even though, it's top of mind when we come in. And it really softens hard spaces. There's a new hotel, Raffles, in Boston. And as you walk in, you see this entire plant area. And it changes. You're in this hardscape of a city, and you walk in and you feel a part of nature, even though you're not. So it's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Donna. Are you guys seeing homeowners asking for living walls or curious about them?
Yeah, it's funny you showed that because we have 2 projects right now,
Yeah.
living walls. It's an incredible feature and makes a big difference having it in the house too.
Yeah, we're seeing a ton of those also.
It's becoming much more popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. How we doing out there, guys? You guys hanging in there? We got enough coffee? We got enough food? Good? All right. Bravas Home Experience Design. I want to start by showing you guys an example of our landscape drawings that we do months in advance, right? These are drawings that are continuing to be drawn as the architect is really in the middle of their project or at the beginning. The interior designer is involved heavily with this because as we talk about the indoors coming outside and vice versa, the outdoor drawings are really just as important and sometimes even more important because of the complications of being outside. So these are the drawings that we do in CAD with our design and engineering team. We call them home experience designers because they are designing a true luxury experience, both inside and outside. I think everybody in this room, we're in this room because we're trying to create a luxury product and deliver a luxury experience while building that product, right? And with that, it's not easy. It does take some sacrifice. It takes extra time. It takes extra attention to detail. This is an example of that detail that is really crucial to consider and execute long before construction starts, like Brad mentioned. Before we're even breaking ground, we have these in place. An example is, if you notice that green wire there, that's for, conduit and wire that we're gonna have to run in order to do landscape lighting, in order to do landscape audio. That's not an afterthought, right? It's not just a speaker that's thrown in the landscape somewhere and stake in the ground the day we move in. These are really well thought out designs to create that outdoor experience. Brad mentioned Sonance. They're a tremendous partner of ours based in San Clemente, California. Maybe just down the road. Is that just down the road from where we are?
It's
Maybe
like
not.
an hour probably. Down the road.
So an hour down the road, okay. But they specialize in creating beautifully sounding products that you cannot even see, right? Like an example would be if you had like in that gym area, I didn't see any speakers, right? And notice, was it a tongue and groove ceiling or just wood plank?
That one was in the gym. It was just drywall with the steel beams.
The beams, right. So they can create either an invisible speaker that's literally behind the drywall. You cannot see it, and it sounds tremendous. Or if you do have a tongue and groove ceiling, they can create speakers that match exactly that color.
Which, to your point, Chris, what they did, so in that great room, they were all in-wall speakers.
Right.
So you don't see them anymore, because the great room was just all plaster. They just wanted a clean look, and then in the gym, they're made to match like the structural steel, so you can't see them.
That's right. That's right. So that's a much better elevated experience that our homeowners are expecting. But that doesn't happen in the span of 48, 72 hours. It doesn't even happen in the span of a month typically. That requires expert level planning. It requires expert level communication. And it's not on you guys, totally, right? Brad mentioned the benefit of having that integrator communicating early with him and the designer and the architect. And Bob mentioned what happens when maybe that's not in place, right? It's just a really simple but not easy thing to do. And I really encourage you builders out there to just take that off your plate. Let people like me and Jordan over there who are experts at this really communicate that to your client and to other trades. So back to this specific drawing, if you notice that green line, we have to get wire there. And think about all the trades that go on outside, right? We've got dirt moving around, we've got sprinkler lines going in, and typically the wire is one of the last things that goes in. So we need to get conduit there. Well, wouldn't it be disappointing to you and costly to you and your laborers and really frustrating to the homeowner if we show up to run our wire or conduit and that hardscape's already there? Or we didn't know that hardscape was going in a location. Have you guys ever had designs that change? Right? Maybe they needed, instead of 3/4 of a mile of sidewalk on the property, we needed that 5/8, right? Well, that just happened to go right where our conduit's planned. Guys, that's a big time waste. That's a big expense. That's a big frustration. I don't want to go extreme here, but maybe that is influential in you getting a referral. Or it could go the other way, and they could say, man, that guy was super on top of it. His integrator was here. The landscape architect was here. Everybody was on the same page because we had drawings in CAD that were all part of the plan. Pretty simple, right? Not rocket science, but it's also not easy. And it takes that little bit of extra effort. Here's another example, just talking about cameras. This is what these type of clients expect, right? They want to know where these cameras are going to be viewed. They want to know viewing angles. They want to know if the back door to the back house that goes to the baseball field, that goes to the tunnel, to the cousin's house, they want to know if they can see that. They don't want to hope that they can. They don't want to hope that they can listen to what's going on, right? They want to know. Right. They want to know these things, and this information is crucial. And again, if there's a change in the home design, maybe an eave is different, maybe a wall is pushed out, maybe that home gym that was 18 feet wide is now 23 feet wide. Well, yeah, we got the original plans, but if there's not that constant communication, we're in a pickle. We're in a pickle, and we've got a slightly frustrated client. So again, simple but not easy. Here's some keypad loops that we talk about lighting. and that importance of lighting. Well, guys, the outdoor lights, that landscape light that makes that $500,000 landscape really shine, we can control those from inside. But we can't control those from inside if we don't have the proper infrastructure. So that same Lutron system or a full Ketra system, those are controlled by low voltage keypads, okay? So we run low voltage wires from the electrical closet to all of these keypad locations, right? And we need to know that, obviously. And if we don't have that included with the outside, now they're gonna have these beautiful custom finished keypads on the inside. They walk out to the patio on the second floor, the first floor, third floor, and they don't have it. They don't have it because we didn't plan for it. That's the communication, and that's the benefit of communicating early and often and constantly. So I don't want to paint a doomsday picture. I want to paint a picture of success. So that's the benefit of these keypad loop drawings. Structured wiring, pretty self-explanatory. And this is one of my favorite quotes. This book I fell in love with about a year and a half ago, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I really encourage you guys to at least take a peek at it. But one of his quotes is, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." So for all of us to deliver these luxury products and luxury experiences, I don't care what your product is or what your ideal build is, we're not going to accomplish what we really want to unless we have the proper system. So everybody up here, all of you out there are certainly part of that process and system. So I encourage you when you go back to your markets to really think about your processes and is every trade involved, right? Is your integrator or home experience designer, as we call it, are they involved early? Are we talking to them? Does your client have as much information as they need to let them make the decision? That way they're not asking you like, "Bob, what do you think about these outdoor cameras? Is this enough viewing angle?" You don't know. I don't expect you to know.
No.
But Brad knows. Brad knows the third base dugout at Wrigley Field over there in Scottsdale is going to be in the viewing angle, right? So I hope all that makes sense to you guys. And I just want to communicate how important it is to be an authentic partner with all your trades. And that's how we deliver these experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important it is at the early stage of the project. I mean, Brad, you noted the builder who called you to find out, do the finishes need to be finalized when you're finishing framing? What we really try hard with our clients is to get all those finishes brought forward.
Yeah.
I mean, we've never gotten to a place where we haven't actually started the project when everything is there. But it's an ongoing goal. And that project that I showed, we brought the interior designer and the structural engineer and the mechanical designer all to the table. The only person who was really missing at that point was the integrator. Mm-hmm. And so that the structural design and the interior design and the mechanical design could all be married together so that when you walked into the house, nobody could ever see where the ductwork was.
Right.
But if you don't do that at that earliest stage, and this is before the architectural design because the architectural design is now moving with these other components.
Right.
So you create this seamless experience when somebody walks into the house, they only see what they want to see. But you can only do that if you organize this all well in advance. You talked about 2 years of planning. That project that we were looking at, that was nearly 2 years of planning to get all those things in place.
Amazing.
And he mentioned the lighting changed up during it. So you had 30 extra lights in an area that you didn't anticipate. And the integrator, sometimes when you bring them in early, they're going to ask the question, are you bringing in a lighting architect? Yes. What is the lighting plan? What are the expectations? Because it can be sticker shock when the lighting architect comes later and adds all these other elements. And
yeah, I mean, it would have been so much easier had we had that integrator there who could have presented these as options. I mean, unfortunately, at that time, the interior designer was part of that team early on, but she never put her hand up and said, we should have a lighting designer.
Right.
And she didn't bring that up until we had actually framed the house.
Yeah.
Right. And so then the sticker shock, the client feels like they no longer have, they're not empowered to make an informed decision.
That's right.
They're making, a fast decision on the fly.
And keep in mind too, these homeowners, when Brad and Bob's clients move in, they're always going to attach their home to them. even though an integrator or whoever was responsible for programming the lighting control or, all the documents that I showed you, they're going to say, that's Brad's home. That's Bob's home. That's your home, right? You're attached to that, whether it's your liability or not, your name's on it.
The good and the bad.
Whether it's a good
Right.
or not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we own everything.
With that, we have just a few more moments, and I'd love to open it up for any questions anyone may have. We have a microphone coming around. So we have one right up front.
Thanks for your presentations for the two gentlemen that built the gorgeous homes. When did you complete them? And have you had much communication with the folks? And have they shared with you anything that they might have done differently now that they've been living in their home?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we just finished this one in June, so they've been in their home about 5 months now. So this started pre-COVID and then finished, 5 months ago. So there were a lot of, pricing and bumps in the road in there, but the clients are great. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I think logistically for them, there's definitely actually more automation they would have done in certain areas of the home that they ended up not doing than now living in the home they wish they had just for convenience sake. But
Our project was finished in 2020, just as COVID was ramping up. I think that the one thing, and we're in contact all the time. We help them with the house. We maintain things. It's 9,000 square feet, so not as big as yours. They when we started the project, they had one daughter who was just heading off to university and one son who was in the middle of high school. So they were in this transition where they had two kids who were living with them, and they built this big space. And as they moved into the house, they realized they were moving into it because now daughter is graduating from university, son is going off to university, and they're moving into this big house with two people. And I think had they reconsidered this, they actually would have built a smaller house.
Yep.
One of the things that is so hard for people is to envision how big the spaces actually are.
Right.
And when they typically look at spaces, and in the old days when it was all 2D, the spaces always seem small on paper. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many clients we've had who said, I want this size of a house, and by the time we finish design, the house has grown. It's like somebody been blowing up a balloon because they just can't get their head around this space as being big enough. And that's one thing that I'm always emphasizing with clients, because everybody's on a budget, is do you really need all that space, right? Does that room need to be that big? This is the size of a room that would be optimal for what you're using for, and trying to get people to bring it back down. And so that's the only, I think, buyer's remorse they had, is that they could have shrunk the house down a little bit.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody. Again, incredible projects, great feedback on irrigation, the importance of having an integrator in early. There's so many elements that can be added and explained to the client that you may not know about, the client may not know about, and it just takes their project to a new level. And just the importance now, COVID really brought your outside oasis, living in your home, enjoying your home, spending more time as a resort. These homes definitely reflect that. And it's great just to have everyone's feedback on what they did to implement it. So.
And Jordan, our integrator's here.
Very great. Oh, you deserve that. Yeah, awesome job. Do you have anything to add about any of your experiences, or? No? Yeah, all good. Well, thank you again. Appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.